Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever actually stopped and wondered why your workplace feels the exact way it does? Like why some offices feel brilliantly chaotic and creative, while others are, well, incredibly predictable but completely bogged down by rules? Today, we're decoding that exact feeling by exploring Henry Mintzberg's absolutely fascinating theory of organizational structures. We're going to look way past the surface level and figure out exactly why companies operate the way they do.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's a universally relatable question, isn't it? Why does a tech startup move at lightning speed, effortlessly pivoting its entire business model on a random Tuesday, while simply trying to update your home address at a bank might drown you in a mountain of forms for 3 solid weeks? We often just chalk this up to the size of the company or, company culture. But the underlying mechanics? They're actually much more specific than that. It literally all comes down to power. Seriously, forget about those rigid, neat little flowcharts you see in corporate handbooks for a second. Mintzberg's research tells us that flowcharts do not dictate structure. Power dynamics do. The actual shape your organization takes is directly, inextricably linked to who is pulling the strings and making the day-to-day work happen.
Section 1. Who really holds the power? Introducing the cast of characters.
To really grasp this whole thing, we need to view your organization as a grand stage. And before we meet your players vying for control, let's look at this critical definition. Mintzberg's core idea is that an organizational structure is simply a reflection of who holds power and how work is coordinated to achieve goals. Think of it like this. A company's shape isn't just an arbitrary choice made by some executive in a boardroom. It's a visible symptom of who is actually coordinating the work on the ground.
And here is our cast of characters. We've gone ahead and translated the heavy academic jargon into a much more relatable cast. We've got the bosses at the top, formerly known as the strategic apex, the rule makers who form the technostructure, the doers, right there on the ground, making up the operating core, the middle managers, bridging the gap, known as the middle line, and finally the innovators, or the support staff. The constant power shifts among these 5 players are exactly what create completely different organizational environments.
Section 2. The bosses and the rules. Simple structures versus machine bureaucracies.
Let's look at what happens when the first 2 of our players take the wheel. First up, we have the simple structure, where the tone is one of extreme, rapid flexibility. Here, the dominant part is the bosses, right? The strategic apex. In this environment, decision-making is incredibly centralized, often relying on direct supervision by an owner or a CEO. Because there's barely any formal hierarchy or rules, you get unbelievably quick decisions and a highly flexible entrepreneurial spirit. But it has a massive limitation. It has poor scalability and total dependence on one leader, which risks, well, totally arbitrary decision-making. Think of a fast-moving startup in its early days or your local family business. Now, what's really interesting about this is how drastically things change when power shifts away from the boss and goes straight to the systems experts, the rule makers, or technostructure. When they hold the power, they design standard operating procedures, creating what's called a machine bureaucracy. The focus entirely shifts to formal hierarchy, high specialization, efficiency, and cost control. It's highly predictable, but it comes at a steep cost, heavy red tape, low innovation, and often pretty significant employee dissatisfaction. This is exactly why railways, manufacturing plants, and banks operate the way they do. They absolutely need that predictability to survive.
Section 3. The professionals and the divisions. Expertise and autonomy in the workplace.
So, what exactly happens when power shifts away from centralized bosses and rigid rule makers? This contrast perfectly illustrates our next 2 structures. On one side, we just saw rule makers driving a machine bureaucracy that relies purely on standardization. Everyone follows the manual to the letter. But on the other side, when skilled experts hold the power, they don't want manuals. No way. They rely on autonomy and professional judgment, creating what Mintzberg calls a professional bureaucracy. Let's unpack what that looks like.
In a professional bureaucracy, the dominant player is the operating core, the doers. Think of doctors in a hospital, professors at a university, or lawyers in a high-powered firm. Because their work requires immense professional expertise, power literally has to be decentralized. You get incredibly high-quality service and great employee motivation. But as you might guess, it has limits. It is notoriously difficult to coordinate, often leads to conflict among the professionals themselves, and fiercely resists any kind of traditional managerial control. Seriously, try telling a group of tenured professors how to fill out a weekly timesheet. Then we have the divisionalized form, where power is enthusiastically handed over to the middle managers, the middle line. Huge conglomerates like the Tata Group or large diversified corporations use this exact structure. They break themselves down into semi-independent divisions, evaluated strictly on performance and profit. This provides fantastic accountability and a much faster market response for each business unit. However, the catch is that it risks a massive duplication of resources and can spark some pretty intense internal competition between those divisions.
Section 4, the innovators. Enter adhocracy, organic and project-based.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the most modern, fluid, and dynamic structure on Mintzberg's list, the adhocracy. In this model, the innovators, meaning the support staff and knowledge experts, hold the reins. They collaborate across completely organic, project-based teams. There is very low formalization, meaning almost no rigid rules, which results in massive creativity, innovation, and adaptability. Think of Google AI labs, major R&D centers, or cutting-edge tech companies. The major limitation here? Extremely high coordination costs, role confusion, and often incredibly ambiguous authority. It can get messy.
So let's pull this all together. We can see a direct, one-to-one relationship between who holds the power and the resulting shape of the company. It's like a giant puzzle. Bosses equal a simple structure. Rulemakers give you a machine bureaucracy. Professionals result in a professional bureaucracy. Empowered managers yield a divisionalized form. And innovators lead to an adhocracy. It really is that elegantly connected. Change the power player, and you change the entire company structure.
Section 5, flexibility versus stability, visualizing effectiveness.
So we know the shapes now, but how do we measure if they're actually working for a business? Well, it all boils down to a spectrum of organizational effectiveness, balancing flexibility against stability. If your environment demands rapid adaptation and innovation, you want to lean heavily toward the high flexibility of an autocracy, a professional bureaucracy, or a simple structure. But if your overarching goal is predictable, large-scale, cost-controlled efficiency, you absolutely need the high stability of a machine bureaucracy or a divisionalized form. Organizations are constantly forced to trade off between adapting to rapid change and maintaining predictable efficiency. You really can't have both at the exact same time.
Section 6, finding your perfect fit, the contingency approach.
Let's wrap up these theoretical concepts into some solid practical takeaways that you can apply when looking at the real world. Mintzberg championed what's known as the contingency approach. Basically, an organization's effectiveness completely relies on aligning its power structure with these crucial real-world context factors: the operating environment, the technology being used, the organization's size, the fundamental nature of the work, the overarching strategy, and the specific skill level of the employees. If your internal power structure doesn't fit these external factors, your company is going to feel tremendous friction every single workday. So the absolutely crucial point here is this: there is no universally best structure. The idea of a single, perfect, ideal organizational shape that works for everyone, it's a complete myth. A structure is only effective if it perfectly aligns with the organization's unique context, power distribution, and goals. What works brilliantly for a fast-moving tech startup would completely ruin a commercial bank, for sure. Which brings us to our final provocative thought. I want you to look around your own organization tomorrow morning. Based on everything we've decoded today, who really holds the power in your workplace? Are they the bosses, the rule makers, the professionals? And more importantly, is the resulting structure actually helping you achieve your goals, or is it time for a power shift? Let that question simmer, and hopefully it leaves you eager to look at your daily work life through a brand new, highly analytical lens. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.